David here with Figboot on pens. There are times in the fountain pen hobby or in just about any interest that you might have when you're presented with something new that just blows you away. It might be something new on the market or just a new discovery for you. And that feeling of joyful discovery is one that you feel a lot when you're just starting out in a hobby. You know, at that point, everything is new to you. But once you've been involved in a hobby for a while, it takes a little bit more to get you excited. Today, I have for you a pen that is new to the market and that got me very excited and is very special. And it is and quite honestly, something that blew me away. And that pen is the Armando Simoni Club Bologna Arco. What I'm going to do today is go over a bit of history about the pen and the origins of the material it uses, discuss the parts and the features, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for, and then show some measurements, some size comparisons, and then I'll provide a writing sample. Now, I came to know of this pen at the Atlanta Pen Show this past April. It was a fantastic show. I had a lot of fun. If you're in the area, it's a show I highly recommend attending. I was getting ready to leave the show on Sunday and was kind of making my way around saying goodbyes, and I stopped to say goodbye to Detlef Bittner. If you're at a show that Detlef attends, you have to check out his table. He always has a wide assortment of some very exotic and interesting and high-end pens. But I said goodbye, and as I was leaving, Detlef stopped me and kind of pulled me aside and pulled out this copy of Pen World magazine and asked if I was interested in pre-ordering this pen. It was kind of like you see in the movies when someone is approached by a dude in a trench coat who opens it up and says, like, "Psst, hey, do you want to buy a watch?" It was kind of like, "Psst, hey, do you want to buy a pen?" They were giving this volume out at the show, so I was aware of the pen, but I didn't know it was available for pre-order, and I wasn't sure of the price. I had a feeling it wouldn't be inexpensive, but the price he gave me was reasonable, and I told him I was in. It was a bit of a risk. I mean, I purchased a rather expensive pen sight unseen. Pretty much only had this picture here to go off of. But I had the confidence of the folks behind the pen to trust that they would not disappoint me. So, fast forward to the DC Pen Show, which is where they launched this pen. It was a very cool experience. I was one of the first to pick up my pen, and they had about 10 there at the show on hand, and Sarah from ASC lined them all up for me, and I was able to choose which one I liked the best. And it arrived in this box. On the front, it has the ASC logo and says Armando Simoni Club. And then the sleeve slides off, and underneath on the actual box, it has the same logo. The top lifts off the box, and that I've gone ahead and take the pen out of here just because it's a little bit on the large side. On the underside of the box, it actually has embossed Armando Simoni Club, kind of in a felt-like padded material. Inside is also included a pen sleeve, which is nice, that's embossed with the ASC logo. And then the tray inside has a slot for one pen. But if you actually flip it over, it has room for two pens. Underneath the tray, we have a couple of things. We had a warranty card that it came with. There was a little plastic ASC logo that came clipped to the pen. And then we have a little warranty booklet or informational booklet that talks about the brand. There was a couple of things I thought were kind of funny about this here. First of all, here is Armando Simoni. That the man the name of the company is named after, who was actually the founder of Omas. And then here's a picture of Manu here, that he's the one who is behind the ASC brand, and that I like his title. According to this booklet, he is the head honcho. So they also must use these for other marketing purposes, because there's one page and the text now says, buy it now or regret it. But this came with a pen. I've already bought it, but they must use these for other things as well. Now, on the very last page, in some very small text, that it actually says that ASC is not related in any way with Omas, which is true. in the fact that they are separate companies which are not related. But Manu and ASC purchased the entire pen and rod stock inventory of Omas when they were liquidated back in July of 2016. So they're not blood relatives, more like in-laws, I guess. And then here is one of Manu's business cards. It doesn't come like this. This is just what it looks like after a puppy gets one off of your desk and chews it for a while. So, okay, enough about that stuff. Let's look at a very cool pen. Here is the Armando Simoni Club Bologna Extra Arco. Now, that's a mouthful, but this is a rather large pen deserving of a rather large name. I was looking for a good number as well as what I consider to be a good cut on the Arco, and this one is the one that I picked out. My favorite number is 11. They didn't have 11 there, but this is 22, so it's double my favorite number. And I really like the cut of the Arco on this model. On some pens, the lighter portion here extends only about halfway down the barrel, so it can make the engraved text that we'll look at here in a second a bit hard to see. But this one had a longer, lighter portion, so I thought it was nice that you could see all of the text. I don't think that the ones that have the coloring coming halfway down are unattractive. I just liked it going across as much as possible. It's just a personal preference. But that's one of the cool things I like about this material. Every pen will be unique. No two are going to look alike. This pen is made from Omas Arco celluloid. Celluloid was more durable than the hard rubber of early fountain pens, but less durable than many modern plastics. Celluloid pens were popular beginning in like the 1920s, but by the 1940s, they'd been replaced by acrylics and injection molded plastics and other materials. Celluloid has a very nice warm feeling in the hand, but the material itself is rather unstable, and it has a tendency to discolor over time. In addition, it can be extremely flammable during the production process as well as toxic. In fact, the original manufacturing process to create this material is no longer even legal. Now, while I was picking out my pen, they had a little display there at the table. And on the display were some small squares of Arco. I was playing around with one of them and was kind of half joking that I wanted to steal it. And they were nice enough to let me have it. And this is what it looks like. It's amazing how much joy a little 1-inch square piece of Arco can bring to people. Around the DC show, I would share this with people and their face would just light up, which was fun to see. I showed this to Brian Gray of the Edison Pen Company, and while he was checking it out, he asked if I wanted to have him polish this up for me. It was a raw piece of material, so I thought it might look nice polished up. So after the show, and after I showed this on my DC recap video, I sent this off to Brian, and actually his wife, Andrea, polished up this piece for me, and she did a great job. It looks really nice. So, I like things with stories, so having the Grays work on this piece just adds to the story, which I really like. And plus, I just kind of like having this piece sitting on my desk. Okay, now this pen has some design elements that you might find familiar if you've seen the Wahl Eversharp Deco bands. The design of this pen was done in partnership with Sid Saperstein and the folks who revitalized the Wahl Eversharp brand, so there are some similarities between this pen and the Deco band. Now, I know this material can be a bit polarizing. There's folks out there that really don't care for it that much, but I love it. I just think it is stunning. From the side, you can see all the layers of the celluloid. And then on the top and the bottom, you really get a variance in color. And when the light hits it just right, it almost glows. I think it's unique and gorgeous. Let's start by taking a look at the end here. The end of the cap has a slightly elevated rounded point. And then we have a seamless cap where there isn't a band or a seam here at the end. The cap is one solid piece, which I like. The clip is plated in rose gold as well as the rest of the trim on the Bologna. The clip is a bit on the short side and isn't particularly functional. Mine is a little bit height. But the main reason is because this pen is so large that the clip is too short to be used in a breast pocket. Now you can kind of put it in your shirt like this. Like I said, it's a little tough on mine, but this is a very heavy pen, and so it isn't very comfortable to have it like this. But when I'm using this pen, I typically bring along a sleeve or a case or a notebook that can hold this pen. I want to protect this one. So for the most part, this wheeled clip is just for looks, but it does look nice. Below the clip, we have the ASC logo in an inlaid medallion. This design is similar to that of the Wall Eversharp, except for the elements are flipped. You can see here, let's see, on the deco band, it has the medallion on top and the clip below, and then on the Bologna, it has the opposite. Now, the benefit of the clip being lower on the deco band is that it's a little more functional, and while this is still a huge pen and isn't particularly comfortable to carry in a breast pocket, it can be done because the clip is just a little bit lower. Now, the cap angles up at a consistent angle, and here at the end we have a trio of cap bands. There are two thin rings on either side of the main cap band. The band doesn't have any text or branding, only this Greek key design. Armando Simoni was fond of Greek culture, and he translated that passion into many of his pen designs. If you didn't know, OMAS was actually an acronym. It stood for Officina Mechanica Armando Simoni, which basically translates to Armando Simoni's Mechanics Workshop. Now, there is a step down to a small extension of the cap, which actually sits flush with the barrel. The rather thick barrel tapers down just a bit. We're only talking about 1 millimeter from the beginning to the end. And then on the barrel itself, it's engraved with ASC Bologna Extra Arco number 22, which is the number of this pen. Like I mentioned, I like that the lighter material extends the entire length of the engraving, but that's not the case for each of these pens. Each one has their own personality. Then there is a rounded band which serves as the transition between the barrel and the filling system. On the end of the knob here, there is a small hole, and the reason it's there is something I'll go over here in just a minute. The cap twists off to reveal this incredible number 8 size nib. It is 18 karat gold, and it is what they call the Magic Flex nib. Now, I just love the design work on this nib, but the surface is a bit coarse. You could see here that it isn't 100% clean. This is what it looked like after I kind of wet a tissue to wipe off the nib. The metal really picks up the fibers. But here it is again after I used a wet micro mesh towel. It's still not perfect, but it's better. So you'll need to get used to this nib having some ink on it. In the case of this pen, I don't mind the nib creep at all. I think the size of the nib matches the pen very well. And as you'll see in the writing sample, it's amazing. Wall Eversharp deco bands come in one of two types of nibs. One's called the Gold Flex, which is the one I own, and another one which is a little more flexible called the Super Flex, which I've tested out as well. But I find the Magic Flex one here on the Bologna to be a happy medium between the two deco band nibs, and I actually care for it best out of the three. And then here's a look at the ebonite feed. The feed actually flexes a bit and helps provide a very good ink flow. Ink flow is not an issue for me with this pen. It is a bit of a gusher. It lays down a lot of ink. The end of the section is flared just a little bit, and then for such a large pen, the grip portion of the section is a bit on the small side. The threads on this pen are not sharp, so if your grip is one that actually sits back on the section, I don't think you'll experience any issues. And then next to the threads, we have something that I like a great deal. That is another set of bands that actually match the ones that are on the barrel. It's a design element which can be found on a number of OMAS pens. Take, for example, this. I have an Ogiva cocktail here, and you can see that there is the band, and then it's also duplicated here at the end of the section. So it's just an interesting design element that pulls from some of OMAS history. Then we have a step up to the barrel. And in regard to the filling system, this pen utilizes a pneumatic or a Chilton filling system. What you do is you unscrew the plunger and you pull this out. Once you unscrew it, there you go. And then what happens is you put your finger on the hole and you stick the nib in ink, and then you push the plunger into the barrel, just like that, but with your finger on the hole. And when you remove your finger from the hole, then the pen will fill up with ink. And then you just tighten down this knob and you're good to go. What's neat about this system is that you can actually extend and retract the piston here without pushing out any ink. You can do this as long as you don't hold your finger over the barrel. In regard to this tube, I really like the design work that's on it. They could have easily just made it a solid silver color with no design, but I really appreciate the extra effort to add to the overall look of the pen. Now, when the tube is extended, it does have a little bit of play to it. At first, I thought this was an issue because my Wahl Eversharp Deco Band, which utilizes the same filling system, has a tube with really no play at all in it. But I was assured that this was normal. And then even later on, when I was showing this to some other pen makers at the DC show, both of them commented that it was normal as well. So I felt good to have some secondary opinions confirming that there was nothing off in regard to the design or execution of that design. Now, this is a huge pen. I do really enjoy the weight and the feel of the pen in my hand. It is substantial. I don't categorize myself as having overly large hands, but I don't find this pen to be too large. Now, the cap does post, but it does post very shallow and not very secure. But the pen is so large that no one in their right mind is going to use this pen posted. It significantly throws off the balance of the pen as well. Now, when capping this pen, I really like to make sure that the Arco lines up and the patterns line up. And for me, it's pretty simple to do here. You just need to learn the correct orientation of the nib when you start in order to get things to match up. In my pen, it's really simple that the nib is twisted 1/4 turn. So it's basically facing away from me. If you do it like that and then do that, then it matches up every single time. So, in regard to how many of these pens will be made, the number is not yet determined. They're going to continue making these until the stock of Arco is depleted. Now, Manu told me that they have enough for around 400 pens or so, and then this coveted material is gone forever. The Bologna Extra Arco is currently retailing for $1,250. The pre-order price they had for the first 150 units of this pen they sold was less than that. Now, I'm not going to be selling this pen anytime soon, but it's nice and rare that I could actually sell this pen for a profit if I chose to do so. Typically, fountain pens are not investments that are going to make you money over time. But I really don't see myself growing tired of this pen anytime soon. It is truly remarkable. It's very well constructed with some unique features and designs, and the Arco celluloid is simply my favorite pen material. And in the end, I feel this pen is a pen that Armando Simoni would be proud of. Okay, so now it's time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the ASC Bologna Extra Arco. In regard to some other rather large pens, here it is with the Wahl Eversharp Deco Band, and then here it is with a Classic Pens LB5, and then here it is with another Omos, which is an Omos My Lord, made of the same Arco material. And then in regard to some other pens, here it is with an Omos Ogiva Cocktail. Here it is with a Mont Blanc 149. And then Fountain Pen Day was on Friday. And yesterday when I'm taping this, and my gift to myself was something that I had wanted for a while, and I picked it up because I have a birthday coming up, and so it was a combination birthday Fountain Pen Day gift, and that is a Conid king size bulk filler. So you will most definitely be seeing this pen in the near future, but it is something that is pretty special, and that's how it compares to the Bologna. Here we go with the writing sample for the ASC Bologna Extra Arco. This is a 18 karat gold nib. Like I said before, it's called the Magic Flex nib, and it doesn't come in sizes. So there's no medium or fine or extra fine or broad. I would say it's a bit on the medium to broad side, and it does have a bit of flex to it, but you're not going to have different size nibs. It comes with what it comes with. And the ink I'm using today is Pilot Hiroshizuku Murasaki and I believe it's Shikibu. This is what the color looks like. It's actually named after a person, a woman that lived in Japan around the year 1000 who was an author that authored a famous book. I really like this purple. It's kind of on the lighter side of some of the purples I enjoy. Like here's two of my other favorite purples. Here's a cross violet, so you can see that it's not quite as deep as that. And then here's like a Lamy dark lilac. So it's not quite as dark as these, but it is a nice solid purple color that actually shows up a little bit darker on the page than it does here on this sample. And then I'm sure you've seen them before, but here is what the Pilot Hiroshizuku bottles look like that are pretty much my favorite bottles when it comes to ink. I think they look cool, and then they're very functional as well. Okay, so let's go on here with the rest of the writing sample. That little skip at the beginning was me. I had it at the wrong angle. It was nothing to do with the ink flow of this pen. The ink flow of this pen is outstanding. You can get quite a bit of flex out of here, starting off with very little pressure and gaining to some more. You can see how you can get a bit more flex in there. In regard to reverse writing, it's actually outstanding. It's actually very smooth. And as I mentioned before, the ink flow on here is no problem whatsoever. And then in regard to some fast writing, there's no issues whatsoever. So here we have the ASC Bologna Extra Arco. This is a truly remarkable pen. It is one that I'm very happy that I picked up, and that it is, there's some pens that you pick up that that you like or you're mediocre on, and then there's other ones that you're going to cherish for your lifetime, and I honestly feel that this is one of those pens. I'm not quite sure exactly what I'm going to be doing for my top 10 lists at the end of this year. I like to kind of mix it up each year to have something a little bit different, but this will show up on one of those lists most definitely, and most likely very high on it. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you later.